Johnny Masterson sat upon his bed, his large calloused hands hanging between his knees. A single silent tear ran down his scarred, rugged face. From across the room, there came a hard knock upon his door. "Fuck off!" he yelled, angry and tired in his grief, and yet the ponderous knocking continued. "Son of a bitch!" Johnny growled, leaping from his bed and tearing open the door. "I told you to fuck!" But there he stopped as he looked into the glowing blue eyes of the Archangel Raphael. "Hello, Johnny," the angel spoke softly. "You seem a little angry. You can take a swing at me if you think it will make you feel any better." What would be the point?" Johnny sighed, stepping aside to let the glowing angel pass and collapsing onto the bed. "One may as well try to pummel the ocean. What do you want, Raphael?" "I want nothing," the angel replied, sitting gracefully upon a nearby chair. "I came to give you my deepest sympathies. I know that Father Matthew was a dear friend of yours." "He was much more than that," Johnny sighed. "He raised me, trained me to survive, looked after me when I was sick and scared as a child. He was my father, in all but blood." "Yes," Raphael replied. "This I understand. He was a great man and will be missed by us all. He was a powerful warrior in his time and a true servant of God." "Yeah," Johnny replied, his voice breaking a little. "I will miss him. He should never have been sent to that place." "We thought it safe," Raphael said, his wings stirring uneasily. "We wished to reclaim the island for the church and the glory of God. We sent many priests and guards, but only Father Matthew made it back. And with his dying breath, he warned us of the danger there. Tavalara, a shit-splat island, a rocky outcrop with a single beach. That's what he died for?" "Johnny," the angel shook his head sadly, "we have to take back this world, one piece at a time. Tavalara was to be our staging point for the invasion of Sardinia. You say the island is nothing more than a piece of rock, but the beach is long and wide. Before the fall, there were cafes and restaurants there that catered to many visitors the island had. The surrounding seas were rich with sea life. Father Matthew knew all this. He understood how much we needed a victory, even a small one. We cannot take back the world hiding in this place forever." "I have to go to Tavalara," Johnny said, glaring at the angel. "But you knew that already, didn't you? You knew I wouldn't let it rest, that I would have to have vengeance for Matthew's death." "Yes," the angel replied, his face a mask of neutrality. Johnny said nothing but reached across the bed, grabbing up his nearby sword. He didn't unsheath it, but placed it between his legs, both hands gripping the hilt. "You once told me there was nothing under heaven or hell this sword couldn't kill." "I did," the angel replied, with his eyes narrowing. "Will you answer me a question, Raphael?" Johnny said, still not looking up from his sword. If it is within my power to do so, I will answer your question. Ah, that's good, Johnny replied. There should always be truth between allies. So, tell me, Raphael, did you send Father Matthew and the others there so they'd die? Just so I would try to take back the island for you? Did you make a sacrifice of them? The angel looked at Johnny, sensing the man's uncertainty and rage. No, I did not. Swear to it, Johnny growled, sweat pouring down his brow, his sword held in a two-handed death grip, knuckles bleached white. Swear it on the name of your god. He is your god too, Johnny. Suddenly, Johnny was on his feet, tearing the glowing sword from its sheath. Don't play fucking word games with me, Raphael. Swear it now, before God, or one of us dies here, right now, today. Even before Johnny's towering rage, the angel did not move, but only sat there, its face impassive. All right, Johnny. Even though it is a sin to swear on the name of God, I do so swear it before God and all the heavenly hosts. I did not send Father Matthew and the others to the island to die. Johnny let out a long breath and sat down hard, his hands shaking. Okay, I believe you. How very good of you, the angel retorted, and for the first time in a long time, Johnny heard some emotion in the creature's voice. Tell me, Johnny, what would you have done if I had said yes? But you didn't, Johnny replied. And for now, that's enough. Let me make something clear to you, the angel said, standing. I don't like being threatened. I can only believe that your sadness and grief has brought on a kind of temporary insanity. You are of great use to me, Johnny. Let's hope for your sake things stay that way. And with that said, he stalked out of the room, almost slamming the door behind him. Yeah, Johnny said, laying back down and closing his eyes. We all have our uses. Two days later found Johnny walking along the road of sorrow. It was winter now and the air held a bitter chill. Raphael had offered to send a whole regiment of Swiss Guard with him on his most dangerous mission, but Johnny had declined. He worked his best alone. Besides, he didn't want to have more to worry about. Didn't want to worry about covering anyone's ass but his own. Settling his pack more comfortably, he strolled on towards Ostia Antica, not really seeing the lush countryside around him. No, he was far too busy thinking of Father Matthew and his dying words. Johnny had been in the basilica praying when a young priest had burst in. Mr. Masterson, he'd squawked, hurrying towards Johnny, who'd shot to his feet. You must come quickly, it's Father Matthew. Has he returned? Johnny had asked, not liking the sound of the dread in the other man's voice. He's hurt so badly, the priest had blustered. Where is he? Johnny grabbed him up by the collar. Stop your rambling and speak sense. In the square, laying in the filth. Son of a bitch, Johnny growled, shoving the man away and heading for the door. He emerged into bright sunlight, trying his best to avoid milling refugees, leaning hovels and rusting caravans. Everywhere he passed there were cries for help, for food from the unwashed masses that now called Vatican City their home. "Father Matthew! Father Matthew!" Johnny yelled over the ruckus. "This way," a voice called from Johnny's right. "Father Matthew is this way." Johnny turned, seeing one of the Swiss guard who turned roughly, pushing his way through the growing crowd with Johnny hot on his heels. Johnny found his old friend and mentor between two marble pillars, laying in the filth. One of the few Vatican doctors pushing a bloody wad of bandages against his chest. "Johnny," Matthew called out, blood staining his lips. "I'm here, old friend," Johnny said, falling to his knees and taking the old man's quivering hand. "Johnny," Matthew smiled. It's good to see you, boy." "Matthew, what happened to you?" "There are people on the island. People. And something else. They worship it, Johnny. They actually worship that thing." "What thing?" Johnny asked desperately. But the old man was starting to fade now, his breath becoming uneven and shallow. With the last of his failing strength, he took Johnny's face in his hands. "I love you, boy. You've been like a son to me. I'm proud of the man you've become. And you're like a father to me," Johnny said, but his words fell on deaf ears as the light from Father Matthew's eyes faded and his hand fell away, leaving a bloody trail down Johnny's face. Oh, fuck," Johnny said, getting to his feet. Some of the crowd that started to gather took one look at Johnny's face and quickly dispersed. Even some of the Swiss guards shifted nervously, the look of rage that was now stamped across his scarred and battered features. Johnny was a big man. If he decided to go on a rage-fueled rampage, it would take a hell of a lot to bring him down. For a moment, he just stood there, shoulders hunched, taking in huge, deep breaths before stomping angrily away, the remaining crowd parting before him like the Red Sea from Moses. But now, as he arrived at the gates of Ostia-Antica, that rage was more or less under control, but still it simmered just beneath the surface. "Who goes there?" a man called from the battlements. "Johnny Masterson. Open the gate." There was a brief exchange between two men. Moments later, the sturdy wooden gate creaked open by a smiling guard. "Johnny Masterson," the man said, grinning from ear to ear. "I have heard all about you and how you saved the city and slew some kind of big-shot demon." "Yeah," Johnny said, pushing past. "That's me. Where can I find His Eminence, James Malloy?" "He's in his quarters," the other man said, taking the way. "This way, follow me." Johnny was pleased to see that the city was getting back on its feet after the devastation that had been caused there. Johnny had put a stop to that and restored order, but he could not save the people who had once lived and worked there, supplying the Vatican refugees with the much-needed fish from the poor city. All he could do was avenge them, and he had done so, taking the demon's head with one swing of his glowing blade, snuffing out its evil and the terrible spell it had cast over the whole city, turning brother against brother until there was nothing left. But now the city was rebuilding, even thriving under the ever-watchful eye of Cardinal Malloy. "Ah, we're here," the guard said, stopping before a large, squat building that glowed from the inside and smelled of fresh paint. "His Eminence is inside. Should I announce you?" "No," Johnny replied, heading inside. "His Eminence and I are old friends." The inside of the building was plain but comfortable, with a large glowing fireplace, threadbare rugs upon the floor, and a small table and chairs where Cardinal Malloy now sat, engrossed in a large leather-bound book, his mouth mumbling as he read by candlelight in the growling gloom. At Johnny's approach he looked up. A large grin, showing not too many remaining teeth, flashed across his wrinkled features. "Ah, Johnny Masterson. Is that you? By God, you seem to grow an inch taller every time I see you. Come in, take a seat." Johnny did as he was bid, grinning broadly. "And you seem to get older with every passing day. How old are you now, Your Eminence? You must be 112. The old man chuckled. "I must have been at least that age when we met. You were no more than a boy. I have a deal with God, Johnny," he winked slyly. "As long as I'm of use to him, he will keep me alive." "That we should all have such a deal," Johnny said, sadly. "Ah," the old man said, passing his hand gently. "You speak of Father Matthew. He was a good friend to me and an even better one to you, I think. But console yourself with this, Johnny. If any man had earned the ticket to heaven, Father Matthew was the one. Aye, may he sit at the right hand of God forever," Johnny said, making the sign of the cross. "He will be watching you, Johnny. What was it he always said to you?" Johnny smiled then. "He used to tell me that God looks after his own, but keep your weapons loaded and your steel sharp." That's it, the old man chuckled. "And he was right on both accounts. But tell me, Johnny, why are you here?" "I need a boat and a captain to sail it. I'm heading to Tel Valara to sum up the situation." "And to get revenge?" the Cardinal asked, with one bushy arched eyebrow. "Aye, and to get revenge. He told me with his dying breath there was something on the island. An evil that people worship. I intend to go there and put an end to this abomination, whatever it may be." "And these people, Johnny?" the Cardinal asked. Johnny just shrugged. "If they get in my way, I'll cut them down. Those who worship such things, they deserve no mercy." "It is for God to judge, not us, my son." "Haven't you heard?" Johnny smiled thinly. "It seems these days he's contracted the job out to me, and I intend to carry it out. Judge, jury, and executioner." The Cardinal said nothing, lost in his own thoughts as he watched the dancing firelight reflect in Johnny's eyes. Outside the moon rose, pale and bloated, holding dominion over the cold night sky. Johnny awoke early the next day, a strange priest looming above him. "Stop breathing all over me, priest," Johnny said, sitting up and rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The priest took a couple of polite steps backwards and waited as Johnny strapped on various pieces of equipment, finishing by sheathing the sword at his back. "Is the boat ready?" "Yes, all has been taken care of," the priest replied, looking at the ground, his greasy hair obscuring his face. Johnny's eyes narrowed at the sound of the other man's voice. "I know you, priest, don't I?" "Yes, we have met before, Mr. Masterson," he said, squirming uncomfortably. "You threatened to geld me once." "I remember you now," Johnny snarled. "Father Michael, right? We met in St. Peter's Square. You tried to have that old beggar executed for laying hands on your precious person. I was an arrogant fool back then." He shook his head sadly, puffed up with pride and my own perceived self-importance. "But this place has taught me humility, Mr. Masterson. It has taught me humility very well." "Is that so?" Johnny said, wondering what could bring about such a change in a man like this. "Oh, yes," Father Michael continued as they stepped outside. "I arrived here as part of the clean-up crew, under the command of Cardinal Molloy. You had killed the demon, but it had left much chaos in its wake." Even in the warm morning sunshine, the priest shuddered, his eyes far away as if reliving the horror of those days. It was horrific. I can think of no other words to describe it. The people had murdered each other, torn one another to pieces. There was blood everywhere. And the children... He groped for the words. "The children were the worst of it. Their own parents had turned on them." Tears were openly streaming down his face now. "In one house there was a cooking pot and tiny bones. It had been broken upon, gnawed upon. I had to clean it up, had to fix it. I... "Stop it now, Father," Johnny said, placing a comforting hand on the other man's shoulder. "The past is done. We must look to the future. It's all we have left." "Yes, of course," the priest said, wiping at his eyes, embarrassed now. "Please, follow me, Mr. Masterson. A boat has been procured, and our finest captain put at your disposal." Johnny nodded his thanks. They continued down the narrow streets of Vasta Antica, the sharp tang of the ocean carried on the breeze. Finally, they reached the docks. It was here that Father Michael turned to face Johnny once again, a look of growing concern on his face. "I must tell you something before you go on board," he said, wiping the sweat from his brow. "What's on your mind?" Johnny said, eager to be on his way. The priest coughed nervously. The captain of this ship," he said, throwing a thumb over his shoulder at the bobbing vessel. "Well, Mr. Masterson, there is really no easy way to say this. The captain is one of Gabriel's chosen. In other words, he's a dead man." Johnny said his goodbyes, hoping the wretched priest would find some peace in the coming days before crossing the gangplank. "Permission to come aboard," he hollered. "You're already on board," a hoarse voice replied from the boat's darkened cabin. Johnny took a deep breath, not knowing what to expect, as a dark figure detached itself from the shadows and emerged more fully into the light. The captain was tall and skeletal thin, his flesh grey and shrunken down tightly off his bones. His eyes rolled wetly in their hollow sockets, and his lips were black and shriveled as he smiled at Johnny with a tombstone grin. "Seen enough," he croaked, his smile growing tight around the edges. "Sorry," Johnny replied, realising he'd been staring. "It's just I've not seen one of your kind for such a long time. I thought all of Gabriel's chosen had long been destroyed or offered themselves up to the other side." "Gabriel's chosen," the captain whispered. "I haven't been called by that name for such a long time. Usually it's zombie or rotter, but although the people here are much kinder than most. And, you know the way to the island? Johnny said, shrugging out of his pack. Know the way? The captain huffed. Boy, I've been sailing these waters for nearly 80 years before I went down into the cold iron earth. When Gabriel blew his trumpet, I rose from my own grave and have sailed these waters ever since. Forgive me, Johnny smiled. There was no offence intended. Tell me, how long will it take to reach the island? About half the day, depending on the wind. We will use a sail, fuel being so scarce and all. Okay, Johnny said. Do you need me to do anything? No, just sit back and relax, the captain said, heading for the wheelhouse. We will have you there in no time at all. Johnny sat on the deck for a couple of hours before sheer boredom and his own restless nature caused him to seek out the captain. You're not going to ask me if we're nearly there yet, are you? The captain smiled, revealing blackened gums as Johnny entered the wheelhouse. It just suddenly occurred to me while I was sitting on my ass in the sunshine that I never asked you your name, Johnny said. Ahab. The captain winked at him. Captain Ahab. Johnny burst into laughter. Please, tell me we ain't out here trying to catch whales. The captain's smile grew broader. Oh, we don't have time right now. Maybe on our way back. Johnny now grew somber. You may be taking the journey back alone. Tell me what you know of the people on the island. The captain frowned. The only people I ever saw there were visiting tourists. Oh, and the Rossi family. They had a small villa there. The husband was some sort of hard shop broker, brought up of a large part of the island, but lost it to his wife in the divorce settlement. Apart from that, no other people that I know of. Well, they are there somewhere on the island. They killed my friend. Yes, the captain replied, checking his instruments. Yes, I heard of this. Even saw some of the men boarding on one of our fishing boats. I was told only one returned, but we were never told why. That was my mentor, Father Matthew, with his dying breath. He told me of the evil that lurks in that place. Evil, the captain said, turning to face Johnny. Yes, evil. He told us that the people there worship it. And if that is so, Johnny smiled, then their lives are forfeit. The captain shuddered at that smile, proving even a dead man sometimes can feel afraid. A few hours later they made landfall, mooring the boat in the shallows of a small cove. You're sure this is it? Johnny said, strapping on his sword and gathering up his equipment. Of course I am, the captain huffed, pointing at a winding path that led up to the cliffside. Just give me a second. But Johnny had already leapt into the churning waters. The captain returned moments later, leaping into the sea by Johnny's side, the world's oldest shotgun cradled across his shoulder. Where the hell do you think you're going? Johnny frowned, ignoring the lapping water at his thighs. I'm coming with you, the captain called over his shoulder as he headed for the shore. The hell you are, Johnny splashed after him. You're gonna get your fool self killed. The captain laughed at this. How do you kill a dead man? At this point, death would be a release. Besides, you said evil resides there, and I intend to help you destroy it. Isn't that why my master Gabriel raised me back from the dead? Myself and all my brothers. And where are they now? Come back down into the dust. And so I will come with you, and perhaps earn myself a place in heaven once again. Okay, Johnny said, placing a warm hand on the other man's shoulder. Together then. Lead the way. 10 minutes later, after much cursing and sweating, they reached a cliff top, the rest of the island opening up before them. Over there, the captain called, pointing off to the distance. Johnny followed his gaze, noting a large, villa-like structure far off in the distance. Well, as good a place as any to get started, he said, taking the lead. The captain close behind, eyes watchful for any kind of movement. But there was nothing. Only the sighing of the wind through the tall grass. They had reached a boundary gate now that bordered the property. The villa, like the gate, was in ill repair. All peeling paint, smashed windows and sagging roof, giving it an almost hunched kind of appearance. I don't like it, the captain said as they pushed through the gate. Johnny said nothing, but he must have felt something, for his sidearm was already in his hand, locked, loaded, and ready to go. There is something here, Johnny, the captain said, a slight tremble in his voice. Can't you feel it? Johnny was just about to answer when there came a sudden clatter from underfoot. Mother of God, he said, making the sign of the cross. What is it? The captain said, scurrying up to Johnny's side. God help us, he stammered, looking in horror at the scattered bones that littered the doorway. It looks like some kind of fucking messed up shrine, Johnny said, noticing the burnt and melted candles amongst the smouldering bones. The captain kneeled down, picked up a small rib cage. Children, he shuddered. They're all children's bones, even babies, and look at this. He said it, holding up the bone for Johnny to see. There are teeth marks. These bones have been gnawed on. It's not too late to go back to the boat, Johnny said, drawing his sword. No, I'm with you. The captain smiled weakly. After all, what's a dead man really have to lose? Okay, Johnny said, taking a deep breath. Let's get this done. Johnny stepped over the mouldering pile of bones, glowing sword held out before him. The captain tightened his back, shotgun at the ready. As Johnny stepped over the threshold, his sword suddenly blazed into a searing light. Stop that, Johnny hissed. The sword in his hand jumped almost guiltily before dimming somewhat, allowing him to get his first look at the dimly lit interior. They were in a grimy kitchen now, the place in total disarray. Everywhere there was rotten food and chunks of meat crawling with maggots. The walls were smeared in grease and covered with dry blood. In the filth-covered sink, a pile of bones gleamed stupidly against mouldy dishes and fly-bone tatters of flesh. "Mother of God," Johnny said, swallowing hard. "What is this place?" "Hell," the captain replied from over his shoulder. "Or some creature's version of it anyway." "Whatever it is," Johnny said, trying to get a grip on his whirling emotions, "I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna kill it." The captain said nothing, but stuck close to Johnny as they passed through a narrow doorway that led into what had once been a stately-looking dining room. Not that there was much left. The once grand table and richly upholstered chairs had all been smashed into so much as kindling and used to construct crude crosses that hung upside down from the peeling walls in crude mockeries of Christ. Here, there was more blood drawn into vulgar shapes of humans mating with goats, pigs, and other low-born animals. "Ah, charming," Johnny muttered. "What's this?" the captain whispered, heading towards a nearby wall. Johnny followed, reading the writing there. "Then Jesus said to the demon, 'What is your name, unclean spirit?' To which the demon replied, 'We are legion, for we are many.'"